Hi, welcome to this video, and today I am
15th of a second.
I'm going to be talking to you about my footage of filming with a JVC Gy-hm100 3CCD vintage digital camcorder that records to SD card. It's about 10 years old, and today is April 20th, and this is what I recorded today in about 11 a.m. at Stanley Park in Vancouver, which is like really close to downtown Vancouver, so not too far away. Vancouver is a pretty small city. So I shot this using my Letus Mini, and using a vintage Olympus 2 lenses. This one I'm using right here is the 135 Olympus f2.8, and the other one I'm using is Olympus 35mm. I think it's an f2. So you can see the Letus is really nice with the Olympus OM lenses. It looks really good when you focus up close. All of these shots here were shot at I think 15 frames per second, which is why you can see the focusing screen, which is not what you want. So I think that everything shot here is shot between 15 and 30 frames per second. So either one, 15 or 30 frames per second. So if it's less jittery, it's shot at 30 frames per second. If it's more jittery, it's 15 frames per second. And the stuff where you can see the focusing screen, I'm not sure if that's I didn't use completely closed down aperture. I used aperture between f2 and f2.8 down to I think f5, or maybe even f8, but you're not supposed to go past f8 I think with the Letus Mini. Yeah, that's why there's sometimes a brighter look and sometimes a not so bright look, is due to that. And I'm using a 110 built-in ND filter on my JVC, and you'll notice some of the clips have sound, and that's because I was trying at one point I turned on the internal mics on the camera. So this shot is an enclosure that's not being used. There's kind of an aquarium at the Stanley Park, and this is for an enclosure for some sort of animal exhibit, and it's not being used. So I just thought it would look cool to shoot it. So yeah, and this is all just there's no cuts made. These clips are just one clip into the next clip, and you can see the combination of 3CCD and these vintage lenses looks really good on close-up shots, and you get the nice ability to focus with fading in the distance and out of focus in the distance and focusing close up. Here I'm testing at the zoom. There's a built-in zoom lens, or a zoom feature on the camera. If you see a little bit of darkness in the corners, that's called vignetting, and that's because of the Letus. It sometimes, under certain circumstances, you'll see a little bit of shadow in the edges and the corners, especially on the right hand side of my Letus. You can see it right now in the bottom corner, in the top corner, in the left and the right side. Yeah, and all of this stuff that wasn't pinpoint focused was shot at 15 frames per second, and then anything else that's more sharper was 30 frames per second. and I'm shooting using a monopod. So I just got a carbon monopod that I got on Craigslist for $50, which is really cool. I got a great deal. And yeah, I just have a ball head. And so this was kind of cool. I wanted to see what I could, because it's kind of like there's these hanging vines. And you can see the enclosure on the right. And that's a little pathway there. And then there's a door, and I guess the staff can go in that locked door. And it says it's a hatchery or something. So yeah, it's nice shots. It was a nice day. As I said, sometimes you can see the focusing screen on the Letus, and I think that's because you can notice it on the lower shutter speed. 15 frames per second, it's more noticeable. And I think when you close down the f-stop 2, you get there. I did transition. Now this is the first shot when I first got there, or like the third shot, and you can see the beautiful focus transition from the close to far back. And that's one of the main buildings at Stanley Park. I don't know what it is. It's a restaurant maybe. It's all closed because of COVID or whatnot. So yeah, it's see the nice flowers. Okay, here's a clip towards the end where I was practicing shooting these cyclists coming up the hill. Not really a big hill, but it was just a good spot to shoot the cyclists. And I think I'm going to try it again, but I'm going to lower my monopod so that I'm more at the lower height. And the next time I go. So here I'm shooting on one side of the street, and then in some of the other shots I move to the other side of the street where I get a better shot. And as you can see, it's really dead because you know, the city's in semi-lockdown because of the Covid, what I call it. So there's not much traffic today, but today is a Wednesday, so there's all those rental bikes you can see in the background. Sorry. You can see some cyclists. It's a cloudy, overcast day, and all of this right here, I believe, was shot at 15th of a second. That's why it's more jittery. There's a cyclist coming up the hill there. And then he just goes out, and you can see the focusing screen, which you really don't want that. So I think it's because I have everything stopped down, and I have another ND filter. I have 1000 ND filter, which I want to start using, but I haven't received the adapter. I got the ND filter, but I don't have the adapter to mount it on my lens yet. And I have another protective filter on top of the ND filter to protect it from getting scratched too. So that hasn't arrived yet either. So yeah, there's a little birdie in the foreground. And you can see it's just showing you kind of what's going on in Vancouver today, which is May 20th, and the temperature outside was, I guess it was around 13 degrees, what I read. So yeah, it's fairly warm. There was people wearing shorts out and t-shirts, but you know, mostly people had jackets on and stuff. You could get by. I wore jeans and a long sleeve t-shirt, and I was comfortable. There's a guy rollerblading up the hill there. Yeah, I love the color of the 3CCD and the Olympus OM lens combination. I got my Letus Mini online. I had a huge problems with my Letus Mini because there's a focusing screen, as you can see the focusing screen in some of the shots, but there's another issue with the focusing screen, and I don't know if this is a problem in manufacturing or what happened, but the focusing screen, I was having problems you know, getting sharp focus at far distances with the Letus Mini. And I spent an afternoon taking it apart, and I tried everything. I tried, you know, there's a little screw part on the back of it where you can adjust to move the adapter in and out from the camera. That didn't change the problem. And then I tried on the front of the camera making adjustments. That didn't change anything. I tried to move the camera in and out in many different ways, and didn't help. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that with the Letus Mini, there's a focusing screen, and it's made out of glass, and it's glued to a holder, which is a black piece of plastic. And I don't know if this was a problem in manufacturing, or if the guy that owned the Letus before me, or whatever happened, but the way the glass was mounted, it looks like it's in the proper way. It's mounted on the inside of the black plastic frame, and there was no way with that setup, there was no way that I could focus it. So it's not glued there, in the glass is not glued very strongly to the plastic, so it just kind of pops off. And then I took some like contact cement, and I carefully, you can imagine, I glued the glass focusing screen to the other side of the black plastic holder, which is a difference of literally probably 2 millimeters. So it's like a black plastic holder that's basically 2 millimeters, and I just moved it from one side and the other side, then glued it down. And that allowed me, of course I tested it before I glued it down, but that allowed me to focus perfectly with my OM lenses at far distances. And so anyways, if you're having issues with your focusing, then take your Letus apart and take your focusing screen and move it to the front of that black plastic, and then center it and glue it down, being very careful not to get any glue onto the focusing screen. So you just have to glue it around the edges. And then what happens is if you luck out like I did, you'll find that when you put it all back together, it focuses nicely in the distance. So here's a couple of gardeners, keeping everything, perfectly manicured. And this is like literally the first or second shot that I shot of the day. So this is when I was all using 30 frames per second. And yeah, like this is like literally when I just got to the park, I shot this. And I don't even know what that sign is. Maybe it's sponsors or something for the park, or donation, companies who donated. So anyways, I'll just sit the camera here, and I left it running, and I'm recording. And that's because I wanted to shoot black and white, and I couldn't find the settings in the camera to shoot black and white. And so like for 2 minutes here, or actually for a little bit more than 2 minutes, I'm going through all of the settings trying to figure out how to set it for black and white, and I couldn't figure it out. That's kind of like a little amphitheater, I think, where they have bands and stuff. So yeah, I just kind of rested my camera here, and I went into the menus, and I was trying to figure out how to, and this is all 30 frames per second, ND 110 filter. They call it a 110 filter. I don't even know what that is. Like in the description of the camera for JVC for this camera, it says it's a 1/10 ND filter, whatever that means. I know there's like ND 1/8, or ND 4 or ND 8. So maybe it's just over ND 8. I don't know. Who knows? So, but anyways, everything is using the built-in ND filter, which only has one setting. It's like, and according to the documents that come with the camera, it's 1/10, whatever that means. So you only have one ND sitting on this camera. So yeah, I'm just right here that whole time that I'm just filming right here. I'm going through the menus on the camera, trying to figure out how to get it to shoot black and white. So I'll figure it out, and then when I go back out, I want to shoot black and white another day. So yeah, it's Vancouver is a very green place, and the reason it's so green is because there's a lot of water content in the air. So it's a very humid place. So that's why everything's so green almost all year round. But yeah, this is basically spring. We had some really, really nice weather, up to 20 degrees about 2 weeks ago. And then it cooled off a little bit. And so yeah, this was it was a fairly nice day. If the sun broke through the clouds, it would have been a super nice day. But it was still good enough to go out. There was literally a spot of rain, but it didn't rain at all. Basically just sort of, I think there was some light shadowing showers, but not when I was out. It happened just before. So I like this. It's a nice dark shot. So I must have had the shutter speed, or I must have had the aperture. I don't know. It's all because it's all shaded by all the trees, so that's why it's probably darker. But that turned out good. I just kind of walked around the park and then shot different things. So these are all walkways throughout the park. Here's some more cyclists coming up the hill. I think now I'm on the other side of I'm on the other side of the road shooting this one and everything again. I shot this at 15 frames a second, and I think the optimal shutter speed is 30 frames a second for your Letus. So yeah, you can see that this is a much better shot of the cyclist coming up the hill on the other side when I'm on the other side. So yeah, here I had my finger by mistake on the zoom, and I zoomed out, and that's why you can see that's the inside of the Letus that you can see. So then I zoomed in again, and it's kind of jittery. I'm using a monopod, so that's why it's a little bit jittery. But yeah, I'm getting good at shooting people too, because it can be intimidating to shoot people. And so I'm figuring out how to shoot. It's kind of nerve-wracking if you get your camera out and start shooting around people. It can be kind of nerve-wracking. But one of the secrets is sort of to keep an eye on the person, and if the person is looking agitated, then just don't turn your camera on them. You know what I mean? It's as simple as that. Is that, if the person is look like it makes them nervous that you're shooting them, then just don't shoot them. You don't want to ruin somebody's day or their mood or whatever. If they're in a good mood, you don't want to sort of get them into an argumentative mood or something. So there's only a couple of situations where I shot away, just because I felt like the people might be uncomfortable with the camera on them, and a lot of times it just sort of the people come into the camera view, so I'm actually not focusing on the people. They just kind of walk into the camera view or bike into the camera view. So, and then they usually are not upset. They just, they just think, oh, this person's doing something, their own business, and I just happen to be in the shot. So they don't feel uncomfortable with that. And as long as you're calm, that's kind of the golden rule with filming, I think, is that if you feel relaxed and you're not stressed about things, then nobody else around you is going to be stressed about stuff too. And so yeah, it's and if you're just focused on what you're doing, the most public place that I filmed was right downtown in Vancouver, and I was a little bit nervous. And but what I found is that was a really big time learning experience, and there was lots of people around. But I find if you just focus down the street, not at people, then people really, they don't even pay attention to you. And that was so surprising to me. I was so surprised. I wasn't right in the heart of downtown, but I was just, near the downtown core, and I was filming, and there's people around. And I realized that, hey, like, I can do this. Like, people are not going to hassle me and stuff like that. It was a pretty good experience. And also people are curious, but they're curious in different ways. Like, the way that they're curious is that they sort of, they'll walk by you, and that's they might have I think that's how they show curiosity, is that they don't actually will talk to you. They'll just sometimes walk close to you and sort of, just sort of, watch you or something. So here's these geese were pretty friendly. And this is when I'm shooting with the 35mm Olympus f2. And all this is shot at 30 frames a second, because this is one of the first shots that I shot. And so yeah, these geese were friendly and just munching away on the grass. So yeah, it's you can see no focus screen in this shot. So I did something right here. I think the 30 frames a second, and I think with this 35mm lens looks really good. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out the optimal settings for the Letus, that looks the best. So in general, I'm just really happy because I fixed that focus screen issue. So yeah, in general, and I got all of these lenses for super cheap. Like, I think I paid under, give or take, $30 for my 35 and my 50 and my 135. So I paid, give or take, $50 for each one of those lenses, and then shipping added a little more as well. And they're not perfect lenses. They're like, I wouldn't say there's defects, but the 135 has a little bit of, it looks like a brand new lens, the 135. But it has a little bit of tiny little bits of discoloring, or not discoloring, but I don't know if it's dust or something in there. But anyways, I tried and I couldn't get it open, and I don't think I'm going to bother. So this is actually the first day I was shooting with my 135. This is shot with my 35 right here. And so yeah, close up it looks phenomenal. Like, I think with these lenses and this setup, everything shooting like close up looks just amazing. So yeah, I really love these vintage old lenses. So there's another shot of that enclosure that's sort of deserted. There's no animal in there. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. It looks good. I think here's where I changed over to 15 frames per second from 30. So some of this footage is like nice. It's, it's not as jittery, or sort of when you focus, or when you have a shutter speed with the monopod, shooting anything less than 30 frames a second, I think, is going to get sort of smudgy after a while. So you can see, because there's so much moisture in Vancouver, you're going to find, moss on a lot of stuff, like the moss growing on the concrete, and like fungus and stuff. So yeah, it's all of the springtime flowers are out, and Vancouver is a nice clean city for the most part. It's really well taken care of. And there was a few people out here. The park wasn't super packed with people, which was perfect for filming. And I guess I filmed in most of the deserted areas, just because I it's just easier for me to focus, like, and when there's not a lot of people around and stuff. But there's so many options for filming. Like, I want to get an assistant and
See, let's go to.
and do some interviews. That's one thing. I tried actually to shoot up this tree, and I changed out the f-stop as I was going up and down the tree, and I sort of so I tried to get the tree and just to show you how tall the tree was. And it gets really bright when I shoot towards the top of the tree.
Let's see.
As you can see, because even though it's cloudy, it's still really bright out. So there you can see I shut f-stop down at the top of the tree there. And, you know, I'm just using a ball head, so it's not like a fluid head. So the pans aren't perfect smooth or anything. And it's because I'm using a monopod too, so I'm not going to get perfect pans. But I think it looks pretty good.
Fucking idiot.
Oh, you can see a little bit of the screen there. So yeah, here's the marina. One of the marinas. There's like marinas all over the place in Vancouver. So you can see the tide was out, and you can see all the rocks there. And so here I'm using my 135 f2.8 Olympus. And even though it's kind of there's a tiny bit of fungus in the lens and a little bit of blotchiness, it doesn't really show up when you're using it. So I'm just messing around here. I think even at one point I took the ND filter off. But yeah, I think that's probably what it slapped back on. And I'm just trying it at different shutter speeds and different f-stops. And I think some of this that's more not as smooth, I think, is when I had the shutter speed at f15 or at 15 frames a second, which I don't think I'm going to do that again. But I think it looks okay. I like the 135. This is the first day that I've ever used that 135, and I like the nice tight shot that you get with it. So you can see there's kind of a jogging path around, and so yeah, you can see it's good for shooting boats, the 135. It looks good. And playing around with the focusing. Again, you can still see the focusing screen in some of the shots, and that's because I think of the slow shutter speed. And also if I have the f-stop up past, I think, or stop down past f5, I think that's what gives it a problem. So anyways, those are all my shots. I hope you enjoy that. Thanks for watching.